Okay. Good afternoon, welcome. This is Vision for Game Design in a Streaming Future. My name is Erin Hoffman-John. I'm a lead designer for gameplay research and development for Stadia. How many of you saw the keynote this morning? Oh, fair number, great. How many in the room? How many in the live stream? Cool, cool. What'd you think? Woo! Yeah, thank you, that's helpful. Okay, so I'm mostly going to stay out of the way here. What this panel is for is to bring some amazing people together to discuss specifically the game design affordances of streaming technology, Stadia in particular, but all of streaming gaming. I think we spend a lot of time talking about the player experience of the accessibility, which is amazing, and the way that it sort of transforms the way that games are delivered to players. But there are also a tremendous number of implications for how we would make new games, the kinds of games we would make, and how we would think about executing those as well. So we'll be mainly talking about some far future speculative type stuff, grounded in a few very brief presentations about technologies that you may have heard about this morning, or maybe hearing about for the first time here. So I will turn to the panel for some introductions, if I can, perhaps this will work. Interesting. Okay, there we go. Maybe we'll just go left to right. San, would you like to start?
Hi folks, San Mahat, engineer in Google, Project Stadia. Happy to be here.
And
Do we have?
Amy Hennig, I'm an independent writer-director. I've been in the industry for about 30 years.
Can you all hear her back there?
Woo! I can't tell if I'm home.
We okay? Okay, great.
Hi, I'm Raf Koster, best known as an MMO designer, also for about 25 years.
I'm Gary Sneeden. I'm a CTO at Crystal Dynamics. I worked on every one of the Tomb Raider games that Crystal has shipped.
So for the panel overall, again, we'll have some brief overviews of specific technologies, followed by discussion on each of these topics, and at the end we'll close for Q&A. So to start, the largest differentiator that streaming technology brings is, of course, this notion of unlimited resources. We talk about, you may have heard this morning that the data center is your platform. So what we want to do is unpack a little bit of what that means and kind of structurally what it means, and then down into some specifics of what it means. We are working on a technology called Game Bus at Google. This is a big part of what Sam is working on. And I think the way to think about it is that the web made a transition from monolithic architecture to distributed architecture. So this is something that has already been done, but it hasn't been done with the inside of a video game. And Game Bus is bringing about that transition. It is a messaging system, a distribution system to distribute the compute of the game in real time inside of the cloud. So this does mean thinking about the architecture of a game differently, as a collection of interconnected microservices, rather than being like a single game for a single player. Because all of the consoles are together in the cloud, there is no console, there's no box, there's no limit, which means that we transition from a single instance where everything is contained in one box to where each piece of the game might be done separately. What that means, practically speaking, for designers is a whole bunch of affordances relating to distributing particular pieces of the game. So you might render your physics in a separate section of the cloud, and you might do that and distribute it to multiple players at the same time. So rather than doing the physics over and over again for each player, you do it centrally, you distribute it out. Similarly, you could do this for your AI characters. The intelligence of a character, its pathfinding, its behaviors, its internal emotional model could be done centrally and distributed to many people at the same time. It also means shared resources. So if you wanted to have a ton of AI characters, you could centralize them in a distributed place and then use these in each of your game nodes. So with that, I'll kick it over to some discussion here. I think I wanted to kick it off first with maybe Amy, you could answer. What was a feature that you had to cut because you didn't have the resources for it?
It's an interesting question.
It's funny, with the games that I've worked on, we rarely cut features, if I'm honest, and it was mostly that we cut content, right? Because the features were, we leveraged them across the game, and so you pretty much couldn't cut a feature without like cutting the legs out from under the game, right? But what we would cut is levels and set pieces and things like that. And so this might be a slightly odd way to answer the question, and maybe even sort of teeing up sort of your second section, but I think we had to cut stuff because we were short on resources, right? Meaning that because we had to custom create everything versus